On the menu today, we're making Julia Child's veal Prince Orloff. Sounds like it's going to be kind of complicated. Welcome back to Jamie and Julia.
Oh! Bon appetit.
Going back to Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking V1, the book that started it all. Now, I flipped through the pages of this cookbook and I'm realizing I might be running out of recipes in here, like ones that I haven't made yet. But not today. I have been saving a couple biggies / avoiding, such as this one with a kick-ass name, Veal Prince Orloff. Veal gratinade with onions and mushrooms. And I was watching Julia make this one on her show, and she was saying that this recipe was named after someone that was famous, but as time has gone by, the person has been forgotten, unfortunately, but the recipe lives on. So that's kind of a bummer for Orloff, but also he was a prince. Also, he had a recipe named after him, so it's not all so bad. This delicious creation is fine for a party. Ooh, no party here today, as it may be prepared in the morning, which it's not right now, and reheated in the evening. That works. The veal is cooked and sliced, reformed with a spreading of onions and mushrooms between each slice and covered with a light cheese sauce. It is then reheated and browned before serving. This recipe is considered haute cuisine, which is high-level cooking, like fine dining, fancy cooking, overcomplicated cooking, that kind of thing. But it's got my attention, so I want to make it. I'm going to do that right now. All right, let's start this recipe off with my cut of veal. I'm using, she just says a roast of veal. And that's exactly what this is. This is shoulder roast. This is what I could find. It wasn't like easy to find, it wasn't difficult to find, but I found it, and I'm using 3.5 pounds worth, and I've been looking at other Julia Child recipes of this. She's using anything between 3.5 pounds to 5 pounds. So there we have it. And what I gotta do first is dry this sucker off. I get my favorite dish, my braising dish. 2 tablespoons of butter, around 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Get this on a medium-high heat, and once the butter starts to foam, I'm gonna brown the veal on each side. It's gonna take around 10 minutes. Here we go. Once the veal has sufficiently browned, out it goes. So if the butter has burned, I should remove it, but I think that's fine. So I'm gonna add some sliced carrots and onions into that butter, into that good stuff. Also a bay leaf. Better make it 2. I'm not driving. On a low heat for 5 minutes. Sprinkle salt and pepper on all sides of the veal. On all sides. Salt and pepper that's on the cutting board as well. Just get that all covered in it. All right, now this thing already had trussing string on it, but I'm gonna add a little bit more because I really want it to keep its shape while it's braising away for a few hours. So without browning the vegetables, there they are. And let's take the veal, put it right in the center of that. Butcher left this thick layer of veal fat on this cut already. So I'm gonna skip this next step, which Julia says to add couple strips of pork fat draped over top of this thing. I don't think it's necessary because I have the fat already on it. Let's take a couple sprigs of parsley, wrap them up in some string, and around a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme into the vegetables. The thing is ready for the oven, but if you forgot to turn it on like I just did, turn it on now and awkwardly stand here. Okay. Also, so I got a meat thermometer into this roast. It's a probe. It's been probed into like the deepest part of that roast. So I can monitor the temperature while that sucker's in the oven. She tells me to get this roast up to 175 degrees F. And judging by how old that book is and how much times have changed and the comment section to every video, more modern recipe tells me to remove the roast at 145 degree temp and then let it rest till it gets up to 155. So not 175. Okay, I think that would be the way to go. So I'm gonna cover it into the lower third of the oven. After only a few minutes, if you forgot something like I did with this foil, cover it, wrap it up like a blanket, back into the oven. While the veal is roasting, we prepare the onions and the mushrooms. So we gotta make this thing called soubise first. No problem, we can do that. I have a 1/4 cup of long grain, just plain Jane rice. So what I gotta do is drop this into a saucepan that has 2 quarts, 8 cups of boiling water that has been salted with a tablespoon. Add the rice. Actually, you know what? I meant a tablespoon of salt. 5 minutes. And the reason I'm using so much darn water is that it's gonna remove, rinse, wash the gummies off the rice. I guess using an unreal amount of water in proportion to the rice, that's the way to do it for that kind of method. Quite honestly, I don't know. I just follow along to Julia. Woo! There's our rice. 1 pound or 3.5 cups of sliced yellow onion. To slice it the Julia Child way, I do this. Thin slices this way. Bring over the Dutch oven, add in 3 tablespoons of butter. The butter's melting, onions go in. Once the onions are covered in the butter, around 1/2 teaspoon of salt, the drained rice. So I'm gonna cover that. This is on a very low heat for 45 minutes to an hour. Please don't cry. Until the onions are tender but not browned. Anything else? Oh, the veal's done, right. I forgot to tell you. Okay, we gotta get the veal out of here. The temperature has reached 145. Remove the veal from the braising dish. Keep the tin foil on top. Let's get that over there. Julia always has me braising some sort of meat with carrots, and then you never use the carrots. They just kind of go to waste afterward, after you've extracted all the good stuff from it. Well, there's still some good stuff in there. All right, so I have an idea what I gotta do. That's gonna require me to move my house. I need this. Strain the roasting juices. Now she says to boil this down rapidly and reduce to 1 cup worth. But this equals 1 cup worth already without boiling it down. So I'm just gonna leave it as it is. Okay, next up, 1/2 pound of mushrooms. Better believe I'm gonna wash them. Let's not get into it today. You know, let's just breeze right past this. I'm washing my mushrooms. And I stand by that decision. Proudly. All right, so what I'm gonna do firstly, just dry them off quickly. All right, so I'm gonna bring over my dearly beloved food processor. I know we've been working on a nickname with this sucker. I suggested one a couple episodes ago. I wasn't crazy about it, nor were you, so I'm just gonna abandon that nickname and I'm just gonna let it come to me naturally. So for now, no nickname, it's just a food processor. So I need to finally mince up these mushrooms. So a little at a time, I'm gonna add them into, I like the looks of that. So I have a bowl right beside me, no need for anything up there. That's good. Okay, a couple pulses ought to do it. How about the pulsinator? The pulsinator? Introducing the pulsinator. This step is always kind of an interesting step, but I'm gonna do it today to stay true to Julia. I got a clean cloth here, and a little at a time, I'm gonna put some into the corner of the cloth, wrap it up tightly, squeeze to extract the juice. Look how dry that is. And we squeeze. Look at these little nuggets here. 3 tablespoons of minced shallot. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of a courtesy mince. Done. Okay, I was kind of being silly there when I was measuring out the mushrooms. Now 1/2 pound of whole mushrooms does not equal 1/2 pound of minced up and squeezed through a towel to extract juices of mushrooms. So I'm gonna mince up the remaining mushrooms I have. As per usual, fantastic work. All right, I forgot to mention that I'm making this mushroom duxelles. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna use my cast iron skillet for this next part. Medium heat. 2 tablespoons of butter and around a tablespoon of oil. Butter has melted, add in the mushrooms And the shallots. Sauteing this up 5 to 6 minutes until the mushrooms begin to separate. And we season to taste. Salt, of course, and a couple cracks of pep. Turn off the heat. Okay, we're moving on to the veloute sauce, which is it's one of the 5 mother sauces in French cooking. Very important sauces. That's gonna include flour, butter, some sort of like stock, this is the roasting juices from way back when we were roasting the veal, remember that? But of course that is not enough stock. It's not enough stock at all. I've had it in my fat separator. I'm gonna separate it, but I also need something else. So what does that come to? About half a cup. So the rest of it is gonna be milk. I'm semi-lactose intolerant, so this is gonna be, I'm gonna need to take my pills for this one. There we go. So let me get that into a saucepan and bring that up to a boil. And then we're gonna need another saucepan, and I'm gonna add in 6 tablespoons of butter. Butter melted, in goes 8 tablespoons of flour. All at once? I'm not sure. Just use your instincts. I'm gonna stir that all together for around a minute. So turn off the heat. That camera wasn't recording, so you don't know how I mixed the butter and the flour together. I got a roux now. It's a solid roux. You better be watching the next part though, I hope. Stick with this wire whip. Add the boiling stock. Whisking vigorously. Whoa, look at that thicken up. Instantaneously. Cool, that is so cool. I don't think I have made this one before, and if I have, I don't remember. I probably have. I'm gonna grate in some nutmeg, just a pinch, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and crack in 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. Beating vigorously, we're gonna boil this for 1 minute, like this. The sauce will be very thick, confirmed, and this looks smooth as hell and quite delicious. Hot. I'm gonna bring over the onions, pour about a cup of this veloute in with the onions and the rice. Look at that go. That is mixed together, that looks lovely. So I have kind of simmered up some water here. It's almost boiling. So I'm gonna pour some into this braising dish here, and I gotta get that onto a regular old simmer. There, heavy whipping cream here. 1/2 cup worth into the veloute. Whisk would be great. Whisk, another, okay. Oh, Jesus. Do not fall apart now. So into the pan of simmering water to continue cooking it slowly. We're for sure getting into the nitty-gritty of this recipe at this point. I know it, I believe it, I can see it happening. We got the silver fox hibernating in a deep sleep. The Charlotte pan, thankfully, is not involved in this recipe today. Besides that, I feel like all hands are on deck. Now I'm dusting off the blender. Onions and rice are gonna be turned into a puree in 3, 2. Okay, so let's bring the mushroom duxelles back over here. And what do I gotta do here, Jules? Is pour. Add the puree to the mushrooms. Okay. Oh, I was already doing that. But I gotta pour in another 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Pray for me. So it's not that I'm lactose intolerant or anything, and not that I'm aware. It's just like with heavy cream like this, especially, you know, I'm kind of walking on eggshells. So, whoa, I forgot that was on. Let's simmer this for 5 minutes. This needs to be thick enough to hold its shape in a spoon. I would say that's thick enough. It's been a long time coming, but the veal, we gotta do something about this. Carve the veal into neat serving slices about 3/16 of an inch thick. Remove the string, please, and thanks. So remember, there was fat on this thing, so I'm gonna trim that off first. Any more? Yep, lots of it. 3/16 of an inch. What the hell is that? We're gonna go against the grain. right against the grain. What's going on? So that didn't really go as planned because there's a lot of fat in the cut of meat, and when I sliced right through it, kind of tore the pieces. Not what I had in mind, honestly, but maybe that's what happens with this type of shoulder meat. So I need some sort of serving platter that is also fireproof, that's gonna hold all that veal. I figured out my serving platter situation. I was doubtful at first, but this is ceramic and it will last in the oven. It will survive in the oven. Carve the veal into neat serving slices. I failed that. Pile them to one side in order of which you slice them. I failed that. The roast will now go to the serving platter. Place the last slice you carved on the platter. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna try to make this look pretty because I've already effed up. Salt on top, pepper. Spread a spoonful of the filling, overlap with the next slice of veal. I'm gonna have to wash these afterwards. Salt, pepper, another spoonful of the filling, next slice of veal, and repeat, and repeat. Spread any extra filling around and over the meat. So I gotta keep in mind something before I do that. She's working with a 5-pound roast of veal. Mine was 3.5 pounds. So I'm not gonna use all of this because that would be ludicrous. See? The problems that I ran into about 5 minutes ago are now a thing of the past because you can't see anything under this. While we were focusing on other things, the veloute had like a thin layer of skin, like dried up, like on top. And now that I've whisked it together, all those dried off pieces that have kind of clumped into the sauce. So I figure why not pass it through a sieve, see if we can rectify that issue. I don't want a clumpy veloute. I don't think anyone does. It should be thick enough to coat a spoon fairly heavily. Oh, that is very much so. Off the heat, beat in the cheese. Oh my God, the cheese. We got more dairy coming our way. 1/3 cup of grated Swiss cheese. See the hole? Into my veloute. Spoon the sauce over the roast. Oh my God. Is this a real dish? People actually serve this? This Prince Orloff was one crazy mother. So I don't know if I want to keep adding stuff on top of this, but it tells me to keep going. 3 tablespoons of grated Swiss cheese. Sprinkle the cheese over top. There's cheese in the freaking... What Julia wants, Julia gets. Sprinkle the cheese on top of this. Oh my God. 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I refuse. I refuse. I can't. I have to follow through. I've made it this far. I kept it in my mind that my roast is smaller than the one Julia was using, so I didn't keep that in mind with the grated cheese on top because cheese is, you know, everyone loves cheese. But I'm gonna do that with the butter. I'm only gonna add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I know, sorry. Dribble the melted butter on top. Dribble, man, dribble. Doesn't matter. That's 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Julia wanted to go viral back then, I guess, so she made the most ridiculous thing that she could think of. Veal Prince Orloff. I don't know if we should be taking this thing seriously because I'm gonna die after this. I'm gonna put this in the upper echelon position of the preheated 375-degree oven, 30 to 40 minutes before dinner time, until the sauce is bubbling and has browned lightly. But do not overcook this thing or the meat's gonna dry out and lose character. Just upon looking at this thing, I can see it's like swimming in butter on the outskirts of it. So I'm just gonna kind of slop that up. Little parsley on the very top as a finishing touch. Order up! Okay, I guess it's time. I gotta cut this thing open and eat it? Woo! Okay. All right, let's take the big old slop spoon and, yeah. Veal looks nice. underneath all this craziness with the cheese and the mushrooms and the sauces and the butter, hidden underneath all of that is the veal, and it's the best part. It's very subtle and mild. Tender. Wow. My teeth just kind of cut right through it, and it's really nice. And of course, all this other stuff on top, why wouldn't it be good? But I'm like digging for the good stuff underneath all of that. That's where it counts. You know, I never need to have this again. You know, I never need to make it again. I had my slice. You know, what I'm gonna do with the rest of the veal is just wipe off all the sauces and whatnot. I'm just gonna enjoy the veal on its own without all that stuff, because it's just too much. It's just like way too much. So in the last nearly 60 years, over 60 years since this book was published, you know, we've come a long way, the human race, in terms of, you know, foods that we should be eating. I do not see a place for the veal Prince Orloff in my diet. Oh, I need to lie down. This was Jamie and Julia. Bon appetit. Au revoir. Now this part makes me laugh. Between the veal slices, we're spreading onions and mushrooms between each slice. I don't know if it was just simply onions. It was like an onion puree sauce with the veloute, and then the mushrooms also had the veloute, and it was just like, it was intense, man. And then at the end it says, we're gonna cover this thing with light cheese sauce. Light cheese sauce. I feel like this is kind of misleading.